The United States of America will revoke a 2018 sanction waiver that allowed India to develop the Chabahar Port in Iran. The United States administration said that the move to revoke sanctions exception was in line with President Trump's maximum pressure policy against the Iranian regime and its alleged terror funding. Beginning September 29th, persons and entities operating the Chabahar Port will face sanctions under the US-Iran Freedom and Counter-Proliferation Act, the US State Department said in a statement. The decision is extremely significant because it affects India's regional outreach and diplomatic balancing. India has already spent rupees 4,700 crore in the initial phase of the Chabahar project. Now let's look at why Chabahar matters to India. India's gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia is Chabahar. Humanitarian and development commitments through Chabahar. Strategic counter to Pakistan's Gwadar port through Chabahar. Balancing between Washington and Tehran, it was Chabahar. Now, Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson said New Delhi is examining the revocation and its implication of Chabahar on India.
See, you would have seen the press statement which was issued by the US side yesterday on revocation of sanctions waiver that applies to Chabahar Port. We are presently examining the implications that this revocation has for India.
Now, positioned on the Gulf of Oman, the port is an important transit point for Indian products seeking entry into Afghanistan and Central Asia. And it is to be noted that the first thing which Taliban did when they started moving towards Kabul was to break the Delanj highway. I'll come to it a little later. That's the first thing they did. Chabahar is also a crucial link in the international north-south transport corridor. Recently, India held trade talks with Uzbekistan in Chabahar. Since Islamabad denies India transit rights, the port is a vital installation for sending goods, aid and investments to Central Asia. In May 2024, India and Iran signed a 10-year agreement for operations at Shahid Beheshti terminal of Chabahar Port. Besides a commitment to invest 120 million to acquire equipment, India offered a credit window of $250 million for developing infrastructure around the port. The state-owned India Ports Global Limited has managed the Shahid Beheshti terminal since 2018. The Chabahar Port helps India carry out reconstruction projects and humanitarian outreach in war-torn Afghanistan. The initial waiver was provided by Trump administration, recognizing port's significance for Afghanistan's reconstruction and economic growth. New Delhi has used Chabahar to ship wheat, medicine and other essential supplies to Afghanistan, especially after Taliban takeover. If sanctions deter shipping companies, banks or insurers, India's ability to continue this humanitarian outreach will be compromised. Humanitarian aid is one of India's strongest diplomatic levers in Kabul. According to the MEA, India has used Chabahar Port to ship 2.5 million tons of wheat and 2,000 tons of pulses to Afghanistan. This includes shipping 75,000 metric tons of wheat as humanitarian assistance in 2020. Beijing operates Gwadar port in Pakistan. Chabahar is the closest Iranian port to India and was developed by the New Delhi and Tehran to boost connectivity and trade ties. India's facility at the port acts as a counterweight to China's regional design, which is Belt and Road project. In absence of Chabahar, India-Iran relationship will come down to bare bone. Apart from North-South corridor and Israel's bombing of Qatar is also compromising the entire IMEC initiative which the Prime Minister had spoken about. Chabahar, on the other hand, is also India's answers to Pakistan's Gwadar port, which I just said is operated by China. With sanctions risks now hanging over India's project, analysts warn that Beijing's position in the region could strengthen. A weakened Chabahar may leave Gwadar and by extension China as uncontested hub for regional connectivity. Chabahar historically was seen as a point when Pakistan did not exist, when there was only Hindustan, where the boundary of Hindustan would start. Chabahar. Cha means four and Bahar means spring. It means all through the year it is Chabahar, like spring. Now, the waiver to India during Trump's first term has allowed India to maintain a delicate balance, deepening its strategic security, partnership with US while keeping ties with Iran intact. Now, with the waiver gone, New Delhi could find harder to reassure Tehran of a long-term commitment without risking friction with Washington. This balancing act will determine whether India can continue investing in Chabahar or slows down its involvement. The fact of the matter is that Central Asian nations like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan wanted to use Chabahar to access the Indian market. New Delhi will have to balance its relations with Iran and US for that to continue. Trade negotiations are going on. So the first question is, what is the implication of this decision on India in terms of trade, strategic affairs and defense? On this, I am joined by Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former Indian diplomat. Thank you so much, madam, for joining me on this conversation. Jain Dasgupta, former ambassador to WTO. Thank you so much, sir. And Major General Rajiv Kochar. Thank you. Ambassador Mukherjee, first to you. What is the implication of this decision on India, which comes in middle of our trade negotiation, which is already happening? Madam.
It would appear to me to be another way to put pressure on us. On one hand with regard to Russia and on the other hand with regard to Iran. It also shows a clear Trump administration bias in favor of Pakistan against India as far as our strategic posturing is concerned to maintain the balance, as you were saying. Now, you're talking about the importance of Chabahar Port and its historical importance. You're absolutely right. We have invested a lot in Chabahar precisely for the reasons that you've outlined. And we have done so with the full knowledge of Washington. And actually, in Trump's first administration, which continued during Biden, the Americans were broadly in favor of our developing Chabahar because it also was able to provide connectivity to Central Asia, which wanted to reach out of its so-called geographical isolation towards India. And as you rightly pointed out, as PM had announced in the G20 summit, which now seems so far away, the IMEC corridor and the initiative. Now, as far as the sanctions are concerned, of course, we have Ambassador Dasgupta, who's an expert on WTO. These sanctions are totally illegal because they are not. Sanctions to be legal have to go through UN Security Council. These are all unilateral sanctions. But in the era of Trump, what matters is might is right. So, might is right means whoever wields the sword has the power. That's the way President Trump wields power. So he is trying once more to bully India so that we would give him some concessions on the ongoing trade talks. I think that if we have a breakthrough on the 50% tariff, as now seems possible, we may be able to come to some diplomatic solution on what is announced on Gwadar, on Chabahar.
Okay.
If it doesn't do that, we would have to maneuver very delicately because whichever Indian firm deals with Gwadar post these sanctions would face the full might of US sanctions, which could destroy their business elsewhere. So we would have to think this out very carefully, MEA and MO, Ministry of Commerce, and look at the way out. But I think that it's an additional pressure point on us at a time when we are trying to find some kind of a trade deal.
Okay. Ambassador Dasgupta, your opening comments, how does it affect us? How does it affect India-Iran relationship? Does it come down to bare bone without Chabahar?
Well, I mean, entirely in agreement with Ambassador Mukherjee. I think this was meant not so much against India, but against Iran, to put the maximum pressure on Iran, as has been described. So, they will not have access to the Central Asian republics. Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, they are all interested in the Chabahar port because, of course, the railway line has not been built northwards, and a road link has also yet to come up to world standards. But basically, it connects. If it had been allowed to continue, it would have connected to the international north-south corridor and all the way to Russia. So I think this is one of the things which the Americans are now jettisoning, the issue about providing aid to Afghanistan by India. That is now been set aside completely. And in this context, I think President Trump's statement about trying to reclaim Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, because it's just 1 hour away from China's nuclear installations, that also is something which needs to be taken into account. So it is about squeezing Iran, basically,